Hi guys, this is the Blue Wrench shop here. I'm back with the 2011 Land Rover lr4 5.0 V8. We're doing this. We had the timing chain noise, or so-called, that I dug into to find out if that's what it was. And it looks like that's definitely what we had a problem with there. I have everything tore apart. I've got the chain off at this point. I rotated around a few times to kind of check the timing before I took it apart, make sure, just to verify where the marks were and that everything lined up. I like to do that on an engine that was running, because sometimes these timing marks on stuff can be a little questionable. Everything looks okay. And I bought this tensioner, this timing tool kit off eBay. You can get, it's made in China, cheap, but I figured, well, we'll see how well it works. Here's the adjusting tool, the tensioning tool, and then I have the locking tools that are on the cams now, and the crankshaft pin tool. And the only problem I had is the left-hand side, the rear locking tool for the cams. You can see that lower one is like the nut, the wing nut that you tighten is basically touching the body. You can't slide it in from the back. You have to slide it down from up above and have the groove. You kind of have to have it pre-adjusted to put it together, because it's up against the body. So I don't know how the Land Rover tool works compared to this one. It gets in there and it's getting the job done, but it is touching the body right there. So that's a little warning, I could say. And I ended up, I didn't even loosen the bolts on the exhaust, right side exhaust, and or the left side intake, which don't pay attention to my writing on there, because I have those wrote as the way I'm looking at this engine from the front. I know it's backwards, but you do have to remove this adjuster in order to get the chain out, and you have to remove this one also, which I still have it sitting on there because the gap between here is too tight for the chain to come through with it up tight, which I'll be taking that off to clean it before I put it together. But what I found is a problem on here is, I bought a timing chain kit from British Atlantic, which come with everything you need and then some, actually. And I'll show you, it's all appears to be genuine Land Rover parts. Tensioners, blades, everything looks good. With the chains, with the exception of a few things you have to buy additional that didn't come in that kit. On the crankshaft, you have these two diamond cut washers here, and the crankshaft pulley bolt that I had to go buy from Land Rover. And these little dudes here, they're proud of these. And then my vacuum pump looked to be leaking a little bit of oil, so I also have a gasket for that. But then your injectors also have Teflon seals and a large O-ring on this end that, of course, they recommend you replace them. These are rather expensive. They're like $40-some a piece per kit, which would be the one Teflon and the O-ring and a Teflon ring at the top, and this little retainer here. So you can imagine that's like another $350 just to reseal the injectors. So they were very tight coming apart. I'm gonna take a gamble on see how they fit back together if they tight. But besides that, the problem I found, when I was taking this thing apart and cranking it over in the video I showed you earlier, I couldn't understand why this tensioner was not adjusted up to take the slack, because this is a ratcheting mechanism, this piston inside here, that should pull out, and I've been messing with this one and pushed it back in, and now it's stuck in. But it should ratchet out and should have, even with no oil pressure, kept, you know, the majority of the slack out, and it wouldn't. And when I was taking this tensioner loose, and I got one bolt loose and out, and then when I took the other one loose, it popped like this. And I realized that what's happening is, you can see how much it's wore. This, when it was new, was flush, or virtually flush, and the tip of that piston has wore itself into there, and it actually was stuck. And because this pushes at an angle, the piston had itself gouged, is what I'd say, wore into the back of the blade, and it wouldn't let it adjust out anymore. But then when I took that one bolt loose and it let it pivot just a little bit, then my tensioner popped out and took and relaxed, took the rest of the slack out. So I have a new one here. With the difference between the two is, and you can see from the side, this here, they have inserted a steel pin with a button into it for the piston to push against, so that it doesn't wear like the old one did. So you can see side by side how that one, it ate into it, and now we have this new one with this steel button in there that obviously will have a great, much longer wear life. And you can even tell the difference in the position of the height. The angle is different. And when you compare, you set this tensioner on top of the old one and line up the bolts, you can see the difference in the angle that it applies the pressure. So they obviously knew that was an issue, the way that that's pushing on that shoe. So you have the steel pin, they've changed the angle, and the end of that button is somewhat spherical. So you shouldn't have that issue with it not wanting to adjust properly now with this new one in there. And from what I can see, there's nothing wrong with the chains. I compared the old chain to the new chain, and the only difference I can see is they changed the shape here on the back side. They put a slight curve in the back of this piece right here. I'm guessing maybe, I don't know. I don't see that it was hitting on anything, but I couldn't tell if the chain was stretched any, so a guy could probably not even have to change the chains, to be honest with you. But unfortunately, you still have to take a lot of stuff apart just to change the tensioner and the blades, because that tensioner, the bolt comes through up here in the upper half, that you have to take the front actuator cover off in order to get to it, which the valve cover has to come off. So anyway.